out and play. I think probably 4 people got that reference. Anywho, this go around on the old turbo bike here, you can see I already got a fairing and the tank shell off already. I am going to change out the V-band clamps I've been running for these guys. Yes, these are Amazon knockoffs, the typical, you see them all the time. Evil Energy. The reason I'm doing this is because I cannot justify 5 times the price for these clamps. It's the reason these clamps aren't on the bike already, is because it just never dawned on me to just look for a cheaper version. But these are what I've wanted. That is what I used. So we got V-bands on turbo side and plenum side. And while they fit good and they seal up well, best I can tell, it's a rigid fit. So if everything's not lined up just right, they don't work as good. These clamps that I'm going to put on have a little more leeway and will allow, things to come apart and go back together a whole lot easier. And I think it actually will probably be a better seal. The V-bands, because they're rigid on both ends, you really got to reef on these guys to get them to seal down against that little O-ring. Well, it's 2 hours later than what we just snapped away from right there. In the middle of me talking, I heard like some crackling, sizzling kind of noise. I had a light socket back here, just on the other side of the garage door opener there. Just had a bad connection in there, and all of a sudden the lights were flickering a little bit. I figured that was something I needed to address right away. So while I was gone for a moment there, it was nothing for you guys, but I rewired that hole right here. New light socket, updated all that. Added another outlet box up there, so I got 4 more outlets up there, so I can plug some stuff in without, like some of the lights, so I can plug them in without having to use those like stupid screw-in light socket adapters. I got the cord, or so you can plug lights in. It was just a bad idea. But anywho, that's all updated and done. So little unexpected project. So let's get back into the motorcycle side of things now. So you've probably seen how this is set up just from past videos, but there's a V-band clamp set up here, and then there's one up here. Those are rigid. So when I go to put things back together on this bike, if the plenum's not in exactly the right spot and everything's not just right, it doesn't all line up correct. So it's kind of a critical fit, kind of with all the flanges and everything. So this is going to give me some leeway for assembly and disassembly, less headaches. But what I'm going to have to do is, we'll come around to this side so it's a little easier to see. What I'm going to have to do is take and figure out how much material I need to remove, keep a straight connection, but those new clamps are going to take up more space, flange to flange than what this does. So I'm going to measure the new clamps to see how much open area, we'll say, I need to have for the clamp to actually fit in there. Then it'll get welded here, and then our coupler will slide together there with those O-rings. And then same thing will happen on the turbo side of things, is I will have to do the same thing. I'll have to cut probably right where the welds are, roughly, weld. I got to cut a chunk out because of how these fit. You can see there's a recessed counter bore in there where the new pipe, or the charge tube, will sit in and then get welded. Same thing on that side. But that inner dimension here, I need to figure out what that's going to be, so I know the minimum amount of material I need to remove out of here to get that to all fit in there correctly. Good thing is that there is wiggle room for these. You can see I can pull these out a little bit. One hand, it's kind of tough. You can see there's a little bit of a gap there, so there is room to have these not perfectly lined up, and that's what makes them go back together easier than the V-bands that are pretty much a rigid fit. So we're going to get going on, I'm not going to do this side right now, but we're going to get started on getting this off. I got to take some stuff apart, and then I'm going to mark where my cut's got to be, grind off my coating, which sucks because I'll have to recoat this, and then we'll get the TIG welder fired up. Little green guy back there. and we'll do some welding. So it's about time we get back into some fabrication type work. So, full disclosure, I'm just now getting back out into the garage. I decided I didn't want to do anything last night, and I finished, the electrical situation in the garage here, and then kind of walked over to the bike here. Just decided I had enough for today. So I went inside and watched some TV and went to bed at a reasonable time to be out in the garage at a less than reasonable time today now. But with that said, now it's time to get that plenum off and get measuring and figure out where we need to make our first cut. And that's where we're going to start. I think the plenum and the plenum end of the charge tube is going to be our first cut and refit. And we'll go from there. So let's start doing some dirty work. So I have the clamp off of this, and then I have my hold downs are off. So there's nothing holding the plenum on except for it's still clamped to the boots going from the plenum to the throttle bodies. But just to show you how much of a rigid fit this is and how it kind of, when everything clamps together, it kind of tugs on these boots a little bit. But it's just a rigid fit, and that's what we're going to try to get away from, is a little more forgiving kind of fit. See if I can show you how this is going to kind of pop. See how that, it's not exactly super squared lined up right there, because the way that slips together and the flex in the boots, it was all kind of pulled together. So now we're going to have a much easier time installing this in the future with these new clamps. So now we get to do the fun part of some math. Nobody likes doing math, but we got to figure out how much we need to cut off of this tube. So we know this joint, where that flange is, this is flat to the other flange. So we need to take out a straight as we can get section of pipe here to make our new coupler go in here and have the right allowable distance for this to take up. So what I got to do is take some measurements here. So with our clamp totally, like you see, there's wiggle room here for a little bit of a mismatch in our cut, but I'm going to totally squeeze it so that joint's together, and we just need to get a dimension overall what we're working with here. So we got 1 inch 8/10. So we'll write that down. And then we know our pipe has to go in each side to this step, roughly, anywhere in that step. And we got 1 inch. I'm not sorry, 1 inch. We got 195 thou. So we got 195, and that'll be on each side, obviously. So we'll have, 195 in this way, 195 in this way. So now we're going to end up with the dimension of the inside here. I'm trying to talk and show you guys with the camera here. So we're going to find that total inside dimension from step to step. So all we got to do is take our numbers here. We'll take 1.810 minus 0.195 minus 0.195 for the other side. 1.420. So if we go up to inch 420 here, that'll be our total inside diameter. I should show you on the camera and not off into the air like that. So that'll be roughly our total amount that we need to cut off of these, well, half of that off of each side. So we'll take our 1 inch 420. So we got 1.420 is our total material we need removed. And then we'll just divide that by 2. So 710. So we'll say 700 thou roughly off each side. So now if I go to 710, right there. So we're at 710 thou. I'm not going to scribe with this because these are my good calipers, but I need to make my cut basically from flange to flange. I'm basically just going to remove what I had on here for pre-existing weld. So that's going to work out pretty slick. And that will allow this to sit roughly right about there. So that's going to be our first cut. We're going to cut the charge tube, and we're just going to slip fit this, and I'm going to tape that together, and then we'll put this on the bike and sort of mock a little bit up. However, what I am going to do is take these guys. I'm going to set these to 710 thou that I need, and then I can use these instead of my good calipers to scribe a line right on around there. So I'll set these up quick. And honestly, because I have room here for these, like I said, these joints, they got play in them. The O-rings are what's going to seal that up. 710 was my magic number to take off each side. I'm just going to go 750. We'll go extra 40 thou on each side. That'll keep this from being a compressed tight fit, and that'll allow my a little bit of movement in my joint. If I got to cut more off, I will. We're going to tack this and fit it all before we actually finish weld everything. But I think 750, nice round number to go with. Easy number to remember. So we'll just make note of that. That's what we're going to shoot for. So I'll set this guy up at 750, and we'll make our cut. And I, just like that, scribed my line. You can see what I got going on here. All the way around. So now I'm just going to take my cutoff wheel, and we're going to stick to that line. We'll buff off what's left of the little bit of weld that's on there to make it, nice and flat and round again. Flat and round, that made a whole lot of sense. But I think you know what I mean. We'll buff the weld off so that it's flat this way, but round that way. So that's what we're going to get going on. So here's our first cut. Cleaned her up. And this is how she's going to go. Just like that. So I'm not going to do anything with this yet. I'm going to do the plenum side now, and then we're going to put this back on the turbo because I know that's a established fit. And we'll get the plenum on and basically into like a natural relaxed spot. We'll get the other, coupler flange onto the plenum, and then we'll see where we're at as far as tacking it together. I got everything for the first connection cut and cleaned up. I had to take the plenum side and do a little hand machining to put a step in there for my coupler to go on there. We're going to go ahead and I got some acetone out. We're going to go ahead and clean these things up with acetone. I got everything, I brake cleaned everything, cleaned it, best I could. So we're going to acetone, we're going to weld. It just seems to really clean the aluminum better. And then we're going to mock this up, and we're going to get the old welder set up. And I'm going to try to get these tacked up right quick, and we'll see how this is starting to go. I think it's going to work. So I'm going to try to do this one-handed because I got everything kind of just sitting in here, so I can do this with one hand. But we got our joint up here. Everything's just sitting kind of in place. And if I butt that up there, nice good fit. We're lined up down here. So I'm going to go ahead and tack that because we need to start getting some rigid fitment going on to really confirm this. So I'm going to get the welder out. I'm going to tack that all in place there, and then we're going to refit everything, and then we're going to cut these ends. There's two of them. So it's time to do some welding, I think.
Cause we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Oh yeah, we want retribution. Yeah, we ran out of patience. Boil up with the cold hard hatred. I can feel the vibration. Feet in the streets, it's a new sensation. I wanna break faces on the pavement. I wanna make greatness look complacent. Adrenaline awakened, I can taste it.
Well, I'm pretty thrilled with how these are turning out here. Full disclosure, this aluminum did not weld great. I've had this happen before. This is that VHT wrinkle finish, and then it's baked. I put it in the oven and I baked it on, and it impregnates into the aluminum or something, and no matter how hard I tried, it's just not clean enough to weld as awesome as like new aluminum would. So I struggled a little bit. It's a presentable weld, but it took a little work to make it work right. But I got the clamp. There's no O-rings in this right now. I just got it mocked up with just the hard parts. The O-rings will seal everything up, but the overall fit and the ease of install on these, as opposed to those, just way more forgiving. And I don't need tools to take that off if need be. But you can say I struggled a little bit with the welds, but I don't know. I'm fine with it. By the time I recoat this, and it'll look minty fresh. So now we are going to address, now that I got the top joint, now we know this is actually, it's a functional charge tube. I could run the bike like this if I wanted to. But now that I have this squared away up here, now we're going to come down here and we're going to start addressing this. Instead of having both ends cut apart and trying to refit everything and having it all spaghetti falling apart, and you get the idea. So now we're going to do some cutting down here. Went ahead and cut this end of the charge tube off and got the new flange tacked on just on backside. Got one tack on it. I got to pull the compressor housing off now and cut that flange off, put the new one on. But I just thought I would show you that I now have the O-rings are up in this clamp. This is how this would run now. So this is all snugged up. The O-rings are in there. That's sealed up. This is how much these joints allow for play, having that O-ring seal in there. If this wasn't quite lined up just right, I can move this around wherever I need, because it allows for flex up here. So if you never use this style clamp, that's kind of the whole point. So it just allows everything to float a little better while still remaining sealed. But I'm pretty happy with this. So we got one more cut to make, one more tack. Then we're going to finish weld this end, and it's on to recoating the stuff. Doing the last bit of fit and finish here. I got the O-rings and the clamp up on that side. That's fit. And then I'm pretty stoked with how well I got my fitment here. You see how well everything kind of lines up nice and flush and true. So even though there's room for movement, I wanted the fit to at least be, somewhat decent. And then this is what I was talking about, how it's too two couplers. There's these O-rings, and then there's this coupler that slides down over these O-rings. Just like that. And then both of these couplers have lips on them, so that when this clamp that I'm fiddling with one-handed, so when this clamp goes in there, so here's a channel. That black sleeve goes in that channel, and then these shoulders catch the clamp so it can't blow apart. And it literally just, well, okay, I'm struggling to do this one-handed. I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it one-handed, and we're gonna all be happy. Oh, it's because I only got this on straight. There we go. That should be a little better. So, clamp that way, clamp that way. You can see they clamps right on there. Stay. We get our pin. And again, one-handed, just like that. That charge tube is installed and sealed. I did that. I did it one-handed, literally. So now it's time to disassemble and go repaint this and bake it all back on there and make it look nice. There we go, fresh out the oven. I couldn't be happier with how that finish turned out. Well, I mean, I could be a little happier. There's always room for that, but I'm excited about this. This was a fun little project. So now this is actually still, there's some Fahrenheit's coming off of that yet. So we're gonna let that cool down a little more, and we'll put it on the bike and we'll get her all buttoned up. Got everything going back together pretty good here. Just got the plenum on. Just kind of snugged everything up and got my my hold down rods on there. But one of the other things I noticed about going to this style clamp now is this is an overall smaller diameter. It doesn't have that big flange, the V-band flange sticking off it. So when I go to snake this charge tube in, so you can see I don't have a whole lot of room here above the valve cover. And the old V-band was actually notched a little bit to fit up in here. And now this one, I got all kinds of room that I can just stick that in there. So now I just got to get everything lined up here. Again, working one-handed. And we'll put our clamps on and see how she looks as I drop everything. So that is it. They are installed, everything's recoated. I love this. This is better than it has ever been. The fit and how it actually ended up welding in the end. Everything about this, from plenum to turbo, turned out awesome. These clamps, totally worth it. Just the overall fit and the finishing touch it adds to everything. It just looks way better than having those, unfinished V-bands showing, because they had to be bare for the clamp to actually go on and clamp down. Otherwise, they would just look all scratched up and trashy. But this is one more little piece of the puzzle. It's just kind of like just refining everything. No matter how long I have this bike, how long I race it, no matter how much I redo stuff, there's always something else to still redo and just improve on. So I'm gonna call this a little win for a little Saturday project. So I can't help myself but to put things back together when I'm done working on them. So the bike's it's all ready to go yet. Motor still needs to be refreshed, but it's a functional unit right now. But that's gonna wrap this one up for the turbo clamp, swap and upgrade, I guess we'll say. Just I couldn't be happier with how the overall the fit and the finish and the ease of use and that style of clamp, how it works. Pretty happy with it. It just adds an extra little finished bit to the bike, while allowing me to actually go back and kind of redo something that maybe I didn't like how I did the first time. And yeah, the other option for these clamps would cost me $254. This was $55. So take it for what it is. I spend my hard-earned money on critical parts with the people that matter. Stuff like this, I just enjoy trying different things. If nothing else, I'll be the guinea pig to test what's going to work for you guys to see if it's worth buying the stuff. So I don't mind doing that. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed the fabrication kind of side of things today. A little less tech on the fuel tech stuff and just overall brain bending type of stuff. Speaking of brain bending, how about this right there? You guys right now are watching this video get edited right here. That's like some Matrix type shit, right? But anyway, I got a few more ideas for some more videos to do yet. I'm waiting for rings, so I bought rings from people that matter. I'm waiting for a set of rings to show up, and then I think I got everything I need to start tearing the motor down and doing a refresh. So that might be a full weekend cram session. But yeah, hope you enjoyed, and you guys got any questions on anything you saw today? Because the bike was broke down pretty naked for a little bit in some areas. So if you saw something, got questions, just ask. I'll tell you. But we'll see you on the next video.